Gon, the Little Fox. Chapter 1. This is a story I heard from an old man named Mohei in my village when I was a child. A long time ago, there was a small castle in a place called Nakayama near our village, where a lord known as Nakayama-sama lived. In the mountains a little distance away from Nakayama, there was a fox called Gon. Gon was a lonely little fox who lived in a burrow he dug in a forest dense with fern. Day or night, he would venture out to the nearby village, doing nothing but causing mischief. He would sneak into the fields and dig up sweet potatoes, set fire to drying rapeseed stalks, pluck hanging chili peppers from farmers' houses, and cause all sorts of trouble. One autumn day, it rained continuously for 2 or 3 days. During that time, Gon couldn't go outside and crouched in his burrow. When the rain stopped, Gon felt relieved and crawled out of his hole. The sky was clear and the shrill cry of a shrike echoed through the air. Gon went out to the bank of the village's small river. The pampas grass around was still glistening with raindrops. The river, which usually had little water, was now swollen from the 3 days of rain. Clumps of pampas grass and bush clover, which usually never touched the water, were now lying flat, being tossed around in the murky yellow water. Gon walked along the muddy path downstream. Suddenly, he saw a man in the river doing something. Gon tiptoed closer through the thick grass, careful not to be seen, and watched intently. That's Hyoju, Gon thought. Hyoju was rolling up the sleeves of his tattered black clothes and wading in the water up to his waist as he shook a fish trap called a harikiri net. On the side of his face, a round clover leaf was stuck like a large black mole under his headband. After a while, Hyoju lifted the bag-like back end of the harikiri net out of the water. Inside, there was a mess of roots, leaves, and rotten wood, but among them, white objects glittered here and there. They were the bellies of eels and large sand whiting. Hyoju tossed the eels and sand whiting, along with the other debris, into his basket. Then he tied the bag shut and put it back in the water. After that, Hyoju climbed out of the river with his basket and placed it on the bank before running upstream as if looking for something. As soon as Hyoju was gone, Gon jumped out of the grass and ran up to the basket. He suddenly felt like causing mischief. Gon grabbed the fish from the basket and threw them into the river, below where the harikiri net was set. Each fish made a plopping sound as it disappeared into the murky water. Lastly, he tried to grab a thick eel, but it was slippery and hard to hold on to. Frustrated, Gon stuck his head into the basket and bit down on the eel's head. The eel squealed and coiled around Gon's neck. At that moment, Hyoju shouted from across the way, "You thieving fox!" Startled, Gon jumped up. He tried to shake off the eel and run, but the eel stayed coiled around his neck. Gon leapt sideways and dashed away as fast as he could. Near the burrow, he turned back to see if Hyoju was chasing him, but Hyoju didn't follow. Relieved, Gon bit off the eel's head, finally freeing himself. He left the eel's head on a blade of grass outside his burrow. Chapter 2. About 10 days later, Gon was passing by the back of a farmer named Yasuke's house when he noticed Yasuke's wife putting on tooth-blackening dye in the shade of a fig tree. When he passed by the back of the blacksmith Shinbei's house, he saw Shinbei's wife combing her hair. Gon thought, something's going on in the village. I wonder what it is. Maybe the autumn festival? If it were a festival, I'd expect to hear the sounds of drums and flutes. Besides, flags should be raised at the shrine. Thinking such thoughts, he found himself in front of Hyoju's house, where there was a small, dilapidated home with a red well out front. A large number of people were gathered inside, wearing formal clothes and with towels tied around their waists. The women were lighting a fire at the outside hearth. Something was simmering in a big pot. Ah, it's a funeral, Gon thought. I wonder who died at Hyoju's house. In the afternoon, Gon went to the village cemetery and hid behind the 6 Jizo statues. It was a beautiful day, and the roof tiles of the castle shone brightly in the distance. The cemetery was lined with red spider lilies blooming like strips of scarlet cloth. Then, the sound of a bell tolled from the village. Clang, clang. It was the signal that the funeral procession was about to leave. Soon, Gon could see glimpses of people dressed in white approaching. Their voices grew nearer. The procession entered the cemetery, trampling over the red spider lilies as they passed. Gon stretched up and looked. Hyoju, wearing white funeral attire, was carrying a memorial tablet. His usually energetic, ruddy face looked somehow wilted today. I see, it was Hyoju's mother who died, Gon thought, pulling back his head. That night, Gon thought to himself in his burrow. Hyoju's mother must have been bedridden and asked for eel to eat. That's why Hyoju went out with the harikiri net. But I messed around and took the eel away. So Hyoju wasn't able to feed his mother the eel, and she must have died without getting to eat it. She must have passed away thinking, I want to eat eel, I want to eat eel. Ah, I shouldn't have played such a prank. Chapter 3. Hyoju was rinsing wheat at the red well. Until now, Hyoju had lived a poor life with just his mother, but now that she was gone, he was all alone. Just like me, a lonely Hyoju, Gon thought as he watched from behind the storage shed. Gon left the shed and heard someone shouting about sardines in the distance. Fresh sardines for sale. Cheap and fresh sardines. Gon ran in the direction of the lively voice and saw Yasuke's wife at her back door saying, Give me some sardines. The fish seller, who had left his basket of sardines beside the road, grabbed the shiny sardines with both hands and brought them into Yasuke's house. Taking advantage of the moment, Gon snatched 5 or 6 sardines from the basket and ran back the way he came. He tossed the sardines through the back door of Hyoju's house and rushed back to his burrow. Looking back from the hill, he saw Hyoju still at the well, washing wheat. Gon felt that he had done one good deed as atonement for taking the eel. The next day, Gon gathered a lot of chestnuts in the mountains and took them to Hyoju's house. He peered through the back door and saw Hyoju eating his midday meal, staring blankly at his bowl, lost in thought. Strangely, there was a scratch on Hyoju's cheek. Gon wondered what had happened. As he watched, Hyoju murmured to himself, Who on earth threw those sardines into my house? Because of that, I was accused of being a thief and got beaten up by the fishmonger. Gon realized his mistake. Poor Hyoju had been struck and even injured because of him. Feeling sorry, Gon quietly circled around to the shed and left the chestnuts at its entrance before heading home. The next day, and the day after that, Gon continued gathering chestnuts and bringing them to Hyoju's house. He also brought a few matsutake mushrooms along with the chestnuts one day. Chapter 4. It was a nice evening in April. Gon went out to play leisurely. After passing under Lord Nakayama's castle and walking a bit further, he noticed someone coming from a narrow path on the other side. He could hear voices. The crickets were chirping, chinchirorin, chinchirorin. Gon hid on one side of the road and stayed still. The voices gradually got closer. It was Hyoju and Kazuke, two farmers. "Hey Kazuke," Hyoju said. "Yeah? I've had some really strange things happening lately." "Like what?" "Since my mother died, I don't know who, but someone has been giving me chestnuts and matsutake mushrooms every day." "Really? Who is it?" "I don't know. They just leave them without me noticing." Gon followed behind the two. "Is that true?" "Absolutely. If you don't believe me, come see tomorrow. I'll show you the chestnuts." "Wow, that's odd." With that, the two walked silently away. Kazuke glanced back suddenly. Gon flinched and shrank back, standing still. Kazuke didn't notice Gon and continued on quickly. When they reached the house of a farmer named Kikaibe, they went inside. He could hear the sound of a wooden temple bell ringing. Light shone through the shoji windows, and the silhouette of a large monk's head was moving. Gon thought, "They're having a memorial service," and squatted by the well. After a while, a few more people arrived and went into Kikaibe's house. He could hear the chanting of sutras. Chapter 5. Gon stayed squatting by the well until the memorial service was over. Hyoju and Kazuke returned together. Gon wanted to hear what they were talking about, so he followed them, stepping on Hyoju's shadow as they walked. When they reached in front of the castle, Kazuke spoke up. "About what we talked about earlier, I'm sure it's the work of the gods." "What?" Hyoju was surprised and looked at Kazuke's face. "I've been thinking about it since then, and it really isn't human. It's the gods. They feel sorry for you being all alone and are providing you with all sorts of things." "Is that so?" "Absolutely. So, you should thank the gods every day." "Okay." Gon thought to himself, "What a boring idea. I'm the one who brings him chestnuts and matsutake, but he doesn't thank me and instead thanks the gods. That doesn't seem fair." Chapter 6. The next day, Gon went out with more chestnuts to Hyoju's house. Hyoju was in the storeroom making ropes. So Gon sneaked in through the back door. At that moment, Hyoju suddenly looked up and saw a fox enter the house. It was that sneaky Gon, the one who stole the eel the other day, come back to play tricks again. "All right." Hyoju stood up, took down the matchlock gun hanging in the shed, and loaded it with gunpowder. He then stealthily approached Gon, who was about to leave through the door, and fired with a bang. Gon fell down limply. Hyoju ran over. When he looked inside the house, he noticed a pile of chestnuts stacked on the dirt floor. "Oh," Hyoju said, surprised as he looked down at Gon. "Gon, was it you? You were the one who always brought me chestnuts." Gon, with his eyes closed, nodded weakly. Hyoju dropped the matchlock gun with a thud. Blue smoke was still curling out from the muzzle.